Welcome, everybody. My name is Elena, and I'm relationship and strategy consultant. And my work is mostly about relationships in life. And core mission is giving people peace of mind and helping them to avoid losses, especially on divorce, in personal relationships and business life. I work with people when it's hot in the emotions and the situation with money, with power and trust. Today we are looking at what happening right now, Venezuela, the echoes of Iraq, and lessons still unresolved, and ICE enforcement inside of United States. At first glance, this may look like separate issues, but underneath, they are driven by the same forces: power, control, broken agreements, and the cost of decision made without accountability. Let's begin. So today, I figured out that it will be wonderful to discuss this matter with interesting guests. The same patterns that destroy personal relationships are the same patterns that destabilize countries, institutions, and entire system. That's why today's conversation will matter, and not just geopolitically, but on the human level. Let me introduce my two guests, and one of them join us is Simon Tresalian. Simon is a special forces specialist and military analyst with deep expertise in security operations and strategic decision making under pressure. What makes Simon's perspective especially important is that he doesn't analyze events only from theory or headlines. He understands how power is exercised on the ground, how decisions are made in high-risk environment. His background allows him to cut through narratives and explain what's actually happening, not what's been marketed to the public. Hello, Simon.
Hi, how are you, Elena?
Yeah, thank you for being with us today. And second guest, let me introduce, is Arkadiy Melkonyan, who you know as a political analyst, and he loves to give personal opinion and put together unbelievable, not connected situations in the world, and he will simplify today for you. So thank you for being with us, Arkadiy. Hello.
What's happening? How you doing, people? You forgot to mention I'm a hardcore libertarian.
Yes, yes. Okay. Now we're going right away to the interesting conversation. What we are care about is about our peace of mind, because all what political and powerful people doing in the world is crazy. For example, we will love to know your opinion. We will start from Simon about Venezuela. What actually happened? And is it dangerous for us? Is it normal when people using power, and is going to be as a rule for future? So what is that?
Well, essentially, power has always been exerted by nations over other nations since the history of man. You know, we've had various different conquering tribes, everything from Attila the Hun to Genghis Khan to the Roman Empire to everyone, really. So it's nothing new. It really isn't new at all. And even though we've had the United Nations and supposedly there to create peace, it hasn't. And there have been some power vacuums. Partly this has been caused, as we've seen in Ukraine. We're seeing other tensions in Taiwan. But mostly what I think people are seeing here in the US is a very highly coordinated and planned takeover of power of the Western Hemisphere. So if you join the dots, you can, and people will understand me when because you've all been listening to the news over the last 3 to 4 months. And part of it started with Donald Trump saying, we're going to start calling the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. That should have been the first warning shot, if you like. And you know, there is more of America covered by the Gulf than Mexico, of course. But this is a power grab, and I think it will be a great benefit to the United States eventually, because what it's going to do is going to force out the other bad actors in that environment, which is Russia and China, who have been using their influence, Russia militarily, China economically, in the Western Hemisphere, in places they have no reason to be. They've both been in Venezuela. Russia has sold a lot of military equipment to Venezuela, and China has sold a lot of infrastructure to Venezuela, all for oil, because obviously Venezuelan oil, even though it's dirty oil, it has 3 times the amount of oil that the United States has. So Maduro, you know, he was placed in power by bad actors. He is a dictator, you know. America has a way of dealing with dictators. Ask Gaddafi, you know, and at the moment, ask the Ayatollah. You know, we have a way of dealing with dictators. Adolf Hitler was another one. So it's in keeping with American foreign policy to look after its own backyard. And it doesn't want Russia or China in its own backyard and will not tolerate it. We're now starting to see all the news today of Greenland, because Denmark is now meeting in the Oval Office as we speak about Greenland. So Greenland is another fascinating part, even though there's not much there. It is absolutely strategic for America's defense. We've all been looking at Greenland in the wrong way. We look at it as up on the right from the US. But if you look at it from the Arctic, it's the logical way of Russia bringing in submarines directly to be able to take out American cities. So it's a very, very easy fix. And Denmark will give up Greenland. There's no doubt about that. So Donald Trump wants a bigger America. It would not surprise me if he uses Canada's weakness right now to be able to get Canada as, you know, 51st and 52nd state. That and Greenland would not surprise me at all. And I think this whole America First policy is what he ran on. He ran on America First. And even though, you know, the liberals in the Congress don't like it, the fact of the matter is that if you've ever played the game Risk, you can see exactly what is going on. He is gaining territory to be able to act as a buffer zone for America. And I think that there is going to be some payoff to make sure that Russia and China just stay in their own hemisphere. That's what I think is going to be happening. But okay, you can see it unfolding right now. You know, it's I'm not giving away any secrets. You know, this has been planned for years. This has been planned for years.
So the answer is shortly, it is strategically, and you think it will benefit America, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. What do you think, Arkadiy?
This is what I think. There is a misconcept among people, especially the right wing, thinking that Russia is the opposition of the West. No, this is the biggest fallacy ever. Russia is not the opposition of the West. Russia is the puppet regime of the Zionist Jewish powers in the game called good cop, bad cop. Putin is 100%, 110% puppet of the so-called West. Russia is a fake opposition, fake. Don't forget the pandemic lockdowns that Russia followed the same rules of the private World Health Organization. Russia is going towards digitalization. Russia is completely fine with selling oil, gas, and everything to the so-called West. Russia is a fake facade opposition. Russia is nothing. Russia is zero. Putin is a puppet. He's talking about being pre-planned. He is a fake opposition. In order for the Zionist Jewish globalists build a greater Israel, they need a fake opposition, which is doing nothing. We can go back to Yugoslavia. They didn't do nothing. We can go to Syria. They didn't do nothing. To Ukraine. They didn't do nothing. Russia is zero. Russia is a boogeyman that allows neocon Jewish Zionist globalists to manipulate Americans, thinking that America it needs to be protected, America is under the danger. It's all baloney and bullshit. The Russian war with Ukraine was ordered by the West powers. That's why the Kiev was never bombed. They built the biggest synagogues in Ukraine. They're cleansing the white people, taking them out. They're probably dancing in the back room with their hats, Hanukkahs on their heads, whatever the fuck they are. Seeing how the brothers killing brothers, white people killing white people. They open the borders in Russia. They flood Russia with Muslims, absolutely the same as in Europe. And United States, luckily we have Latinos, not Muslims. This is China is also a product of Western corporations. China is not an independent entity. It's another boogeyman. I remember the video of Eisel with Charlotte. She was the right hand of she wrote the book Dumbing Down of America. She was the right hand of the Ronald Reagan. I remember about 6 to 7 years ago, before she passed away, she had a very interesting interview saying that the global is going to create artificial crises, artificial boogeymans, climate and pandemics, wars. So at the end of the day, they will offer their solutions, which can be the big step towards the new world order. United States can give a shit less about dictators. They place them in the countries when they need them. The Maduro stuff was not for America great. It was with approval of the Israel, which participated and organized 9/11, killing Americans and taking down Twin Towers, shredding Constitution. It was all done by Israel. Homeland Security was run by Michael Chertoff, Israeli citizen, to take our freedoms away. But in order successfully to do that, they need some boogeyman. In this case, it was some so-called terrorists who hijacked the planes, which is a bunch of baloney, bunch of bullshit. These airplanes were remote controls, drones, and the buildings were stuffed with explosives. That's all proven. Israeli agents were prowling around, dancing and waiting with the cameras to see how this is going to happen. The owner of the Twin Towers, Larry Silverstein, Israeli citizen, good buddy with the Trump. Trump is not America first. It's just a cover-up slogan to make Americans believe that he's for America. He's for Israel. He's a Jew puppet. He's an open puppet. He's not for America first. He doesn't give a shit about America. All he cares about serve his masters, which in this case is Netanyahu and AIPAC Israeli lobby. This is a big Jewish Zionist plan to destroy the world. The reason why they got rid of Maduro is because he started talking shit about Israel. He did not want to cooperate with them. It's not about drugs. Drugs coming from Mexico when they have their own Jewish president with the name Schneibaum, climate specialist, who's pushing for digital IDs and all that kind of crap. So the special interest parties, secret pockets of United States government, which one of them I would dare to say CIA and others and FBI, making huge money with drugs through Mexico. That's their main profit. So they're not fighting war on drugs. It's all bullshit. Just like they would never had any intentions to fight any so-called pandemics, or neither fighting any kind of war on terror. This is all fake, manufactured bullshit. There is no threat for America. These Trump's ideas of America first, it's only and only designed to calm down, to pacify Americans who's sick of the left-wing policies. As I said, all these immigration crises were designed. It's a design. It's not Biden or Trump. They're both puppets. They're nobodies. They told, in few words, they told Trump, okay, we're going to make sure that your elections are known as fraudulent. You go play the golf, buddy. Biden will open the borders because if you do, it's going to be obvious. So we're going to bring in a lot of immigrants, and then we're going to expand federal government, violating Constitution, go around the towns and harass people. Supposedly we're going to fight the crisis that we're going to create. And you, Trump, going to be a hero. You're just going to be savior, and gullible Americans will vote for you. By the way, don't forget, throw into the Christian card also, because right wing, they're Christians. Tell them God is with us. Tell them God is good. And he went ahead and opened Department of Faith, which is ridiculous, disgusting. Who's going to fight anti-Christian bias? In
Okay,
other words, this
we
is
heard you. It's a lot of accusation also. So could
no,
you
it's not accusation. This is
yeah,
the truth, and I want people to see it. It's not accusation.
got it.
Everything is factual. These people are criminals. All of them, Democrats or Republicans, such thing doesn't exist. They all serve the big master called New World Order. This is it, period.
Okay, Simon, you have a lot to answer now.
There's a lot to unpack there.
Exactly.
So I guess you won't be holidaying in Tel Aviv anytime soon, Arkadiy.
No.
There are some elements there that I agree with. I certainly don't see Russia as being any form of threat to America, even though they do hold a pretty significant nuclear arsenal. However, as I've said before in previous videos, nuclear weapons, as we understand them, do not work anyway. Nuclear missiles do not work. And it's interesting when, Arkadiy talks about this being facts. I'd like to see some of those facts, actually, because a lot of that is conjecture. A lot of the old, we talk about boogeymans, well, the 13 families have been the biggest boogeymans in the world. And yes, they do hold a great deal of influence. I've written books on it. So I am aware of that. Russia lost its influence with the Soviet Union. Once upon a time, there was balanced aggression, mostly in Europe, because that's where the powers were at that stage after the Second World War. So you had communism versus, the Western nations. With the fall of the Soviet Union and the Berlin Wall, which I was very well versed in, I was actually a part of that. We then saw the power vacuum change, because the Soviet Union was, of course, not just Russia. It was made up of Romania and Hungary and Poland and everywhere else. All of those are now Western leaning now, even though Yugoslavia went in a different way. And again, I was involved in that war as well, with Bosnia and Kosovo. But we saw a real reduction in Russia's power. And I think this has been now brought to bear by Ukraine. I mean, Ukraine was actually, there were more Ukrainians that I'd met that were FSB and GRU, certainly GRU, than normal Russians. The Russians didn't trust half of Russia anyway. That's why they never used to have battalions made up of people from the same area. They used to spread them out. Most of them couldn't even speak to each other. So Belarus and Ukraine were the top people for the KGB. Now, of course, Ukraine is different. And we're seeing now the frailty of the Russian war machine in Ukraine, which they're just getting slaughtered. They're getting slaughtered technically, they're getting slaughtered militarily. And it's very interesting to see that. So this is actually going to diminish NATO. NATO is actually losing its power dramatically. It would not surprise me at all if America started receding. America only keeps NATO going because it wants bases in Europe. It has Ramstein base. It has some of the biggest bases in the world, actually, in Europe. But if it wasn't for that, they would probably just get rid of NATO and create a new system. And I think that is going to come. Within the next year, you are going to see a new pact in the West, and it will involve Greenland, the United States of America, Canada, Mexico, Venezuela, Colombia, Argentina, and Brazil. Those are going to be the main countries that will create a Western NATO pact that will be basically centered around balancing out China's influence. And this is where I agree with Arkadiy in part there, because the world itself, the 13 families, I don't agree with the whole Zionist thing. If you understand what a true Zionist is, and Israel, it goes way back. It's nothing to do with the present state of Israel. It's nothing to do with Netanyahu. He holds no power in this world whatsoever, nor do the basic Jewish lobby. However, Zionists and Jewish people are very, very different. Most Jews would not call themselves Zionists. And therefore you have the Hebrew Jews and you have the Zionists, which is a false religion made from the original 12 families. So you have to have this, and this is one of the biggest problems that we have with the anti-Jewish lobby, is that they then link all Jews as being evil, you know, and this all goes back to Christ. The Jews are the ones that killed Christ, after all, you know. So the Christians have always got a thing about the Jews, but Israel, even the word Israel, stands for Isis, Ra, and Elohim, which means the goddess Isis, the god Ra, which is Egyptian, and the Elohim, which is the Anunnaki, or what people would call the original bloodlines of the 13 families. This is why every religion has a central god and 12, if you like, goddesses, if you like. They call it the pantheon. So you have, with Egypt, it was Ra, and then they have the 12 gods. In Greece, you know, they had the same. In Rome, they had the same. You know, so you had Odin with the Vikings. You always have a central god that they worship, and then the 12, and that's why they had Jesus Christ with the 12 disciples. You know, this is why we have 12 months in a year to recognize those gods. You know, it's why we have 12 hours on a clock. You know, why don't we have 24 hours on the clock? Yeah, so all of these things go back way before the state of Israel was even the gleam, you know, in an emperor's eye. So I don't think that we can point the finger and say it's all a pseudo-Masonic, Israeli, Zionist, whatever plot. You know, there are certain interests and families involved. That is a fact. And you can find who those families are. You know, obviously the Rothschilds are the major ones, the Kennedys, you know, all of them, and all of them link into every president that has ever been in the United States, bar one. So, you know, we understand this. We do understand this. It's how do we live with it? Because there's nothing quite that we can do right now to counter it. You know, people have tried, people have failed, but for the normal human being, the normal person on the planet, it holds no real bearing. You know, it doesn't interest them in the least. It may interest them from a movie point of view, but the average person just wants to live, wants to love, earn money, you know, breed, carry on. That's all they want to do.
Thank you. Very wonderful answer. And Arkadiy, do you want to say something? Do you want to comment?
Yes, I disagree with the fact that the Jesus was killed by the Jews. The whole idea of Jesus is a Jewish mythical story of charlatan who supposedly did some fucking miracles. That's a nice word for bullshit. And we know there is historically zero evidence of any Jesus in that form existed. There were a lot of people with named Jesuses. All these religions, Abrahamic religions, are controlled, designed to divide us, designed to give us false hope, just like the Jewish communism. Oh, you can suffer now, but later on you have a beautiful, bright future. And talking about AIPAC, this is the most parasitic, most influential foreign organization that basically enslaved Americans' foreign policies. We have no business in Iraq, no business in Afghanistan, no business anywhere. America can mind his own business. This freaking AIPAC, like again, we're going back to 9/11. It was done by US and Israeli government. There is no doubt about it. We don't have time and I don't want to go into it. The Russian government is taken over by Jews. You know that, Elena. All the mainstream journalists, Kremlin, Putin propagandists, they're all Jewish. All the banking system is surrounding is all. You know, same with Ukraine. It's a long story. We can go on and on and on and on. So they build in a big world empire with the digital currency. It's their goal. They're building the crazy world that does not apply to regular Jewish people. Of course, I agree. Regular Jewish person has nothing to do with the Zionist bullshit. When we call it a Zionist, I don't want to go into details what originally Zionism is supposed to mean. We talked about what it turned into right now. It turned into horrible racist ideology. They manipulate all the religions because back then they had no mass media. So they decided to finance religions where people are going to be obedient, believing that there is a devil and Satan and, whatever, etc., etc. All that bullshit, baloney, fed people for many, many centuries and years to be obedient slaves. And for all I know, you don't have to go too far to see when Netanyahu, the world war criminal dictator, who comes to the United States, how everybody's licking his ass. Everybody turned into toilet paper in the United States, except Rand Paul, standing ovations, ass kissing. In every state, in every country, including Russia, anti-Semitic laws passed. You can't criticize them. Oh my God, you can't say shit to them. But if you look in the real financial system, it's all done, controlled by them. Federal Reserve Bank is another Jewish bank, and 100% Jewish bank. So they think they're chosen. They think they're better than everybody else. They call us goems. They call us trash. Okay, right now, the genocide in Palestine, who did what? How many people killed Maduro? Probably zero. I have friends from Venezuela. Their life is sucks, but they have oppositional newspapers. They can speak freely whatever they want. But try to do that against Israel. In any country in the world, you will be beaten by the police. You will be called anti-Semitic. You will be called whatever the names, all kinds of names. But as we speak, the genocide of Palestinian people going on, I'm not a fan of Muslims or anything. I'm an atheist. But the world governments and powers doing nothing to stop this horrific crime. And lastly, who financed the Hitler? Huh? Who financed the communists? Who? Who made sure that white people in Europe gonna kill each other? Who made sure that Second World War started and waited until they could, until when the Germans reached Moscow, and then they start financing back. So they finance both sides of the war and singing their Hanukkah songs and being happy seeing how white people or any other kind of people kill each other. So this is bad. Everything Trump does is as bad as Biden did. None of these pieces of shit deserve any credit for anything. These people work for the dark agenda of the Jewish world order. Period.
I would say that there's certainly some things I agree with there, and with Arkadiy, certainly on the financial side. I mean, the Jews have always been synonymous with finance. It's always been the case, and certainly the Fed. I very much agree with that, and that's one of the reasons why the Fed will close within the next year.
No,
it will. Well, I'm just giving you a little prediction here.
no, I'm betting $10,000 cash, my brother.
The
With
Fed,
all the respect,
in the way that is structured and the way that it is run, will change.
well, it will be worse. They will come up with a
No,
CBDC.
it will change. And the other thing I would say is that if Israel was so wanting to change this new world order and was so powerful in the world, why is it so fragile?
It's not fragile. It's fake. It's not fragile. It's
Well,
fake. They take
I
lands,
think
they expand.
the
How are they-
October invasion
Tell me,
will
how
probably
are
go
they
against
fragile?
that.
Tell me.
Don't speak
No,
over each
no,
other.
no. I ask question. Demonstrate me how is the Israel fragile, please.
Well, I mean, just look at the Arab-Israeli wars. They lost Sinai. The October 16th. You had when they came across. Israel had very little to be able to defend against it. So they are a nuclear power, but they do not have the nuclear delivery systems. Otherwise, they would have used that in Gaza. They would have used that, in the 6 Day War, in the Arab-Israeli War, and all the other wars that they've actually been, surrounded with. So I don't agree with that. I do agree with the Second World War being funded by both sides. Certainly, that is a fact that the World Bank actually bolstered Hitler and the rise of National Socialism in Germany. And then it created the Lend-Lease process, where the British and everyone else were able to then borrow vast sums of money from the World Bank to fight Hitler. And after that, after Hitler was defeated, the very same bank that sponsored both Hitler and Lend-Lease created the Marshall Plan, which was then to build the German miracle up again. And that's what they did in the 70s. So the Marshall Plan was actually there to give Germany a lot of money to rebuild itself after the war, because they knew that Germany was going to be the central part of any type of European Union, which, of course, after the demise of the Soviet Union became a reality when East Germany joined West Germany. So there is some merit to that. And yeah, I mean, the banking system has always been there from the time of the turning over of the money changers tables, if you like. And I think that is relevant. It is relevant. But I would say that there is not going to be, and it's interesting that you talk about Zion as well, because I've done a lot of research on this, and it depends very much how you spell it. So when you talk about Mount Sion and Sion with an S, Sion with an S in Hebrew means lofty place. Zion with a Z means fortress. So that's what they're building. When you talk about the Zionist regime, they are talking about a fortress which they intend to create. Now, at the present time, that fortress is built on the power of finance, but it's certainly not a military fortress. I've worked with Israeli forces, and they're not particularly good. They're really not. I mean, they're okay in some of the. I've worked with the Israeli commandos; they were pretty good. But the average Israeli force is like any conscript force anywhere in the world, very, very limited in what it can do, and it wouldn't be anything without the Americans bolstering it. That's for sure.
So, can we say, for example, previous all kind of wars, including biggest one, Afghanistan, Iraq, and so on with Russia, can we consider it was a practicing, training for what's going on right now? And this is going to escalate.
You're talking to me now?
For both of you, this question, whoever will be first.
While we have the parasitic, blood-sucking, money-sucking, parasitic entity on American taxpayers called Israel, nothing good will happen in the world. European Union controlled by them, Russia controlled by them, China controlled by them. They control. The United States it's a little bitch. They bitch slap United States. United States is a puppet for them. United States is occupied. United States has no independence. Nothing for last, as far as I know, 20 plus years that so-called United States puppet government did is any good for United States. Zero, absolute zero. They're doing worse for Israel. It's a fact. And we know that every congressman, I had an interview with Cynthia McKinney, and I've heard Ron Paul. They come to you and they tell you, here is a paper you should sign that you're going to align with Israeli interests. One of the few who refused that was Cynthia McKinney. She's my friend. So they control United States. United States is a zero. When people talk about United States has its own interest, it seriously sadly makes me laugh. It's a very sad laugh, because United States is not serving his people. United States government does not work, only on a local level and some state levels, not working for American people at all. It's working for Israeli lobbies' interest, for rich, powerful dual citizens of Israel. Israel attacked the United States so many times. It's not even funny. Really attacked. USS Liberty, Levant Affairs, 9/11, etc., etc. Some boats were delivering goods and medical medication to Palestinians, whatever. They attacked. They don't give a shit. They do not give a shit. Israel has 100% control over United.
Okay, so continue your thought, Arkady.
My thoughts are these. I don't want anybody to think that I think every Jew is in it and the whole powers to be, they're all full only with Jews. No, no, it's not the case. The Prime Minister of Armenia, Aliyev's and Erdogan's and lots of other so-called leaders, they're prostitutes who work for the agenda because they got piece of pie. The only point I'm trying to make is don't be fooled in thinking that Trump is any better than anybody. Trump is a prostitute who changed like chameleon. He can change the color of his skin anytime. He can say whatever he's saying, and then 5 minutes later change his previous statement. Trump is nobody. I have no respect for a guy at all, just like for any of them. Absolutely no good news that I can, say it. The only good news is a lot of people, especially in England also, they rebel against the digital CBDC bullshit. And we have to keep fighting all the governments, all of them. There is no good governments in the world, one worse than another one. And like I said, especially the fact that we have blood-sucking parasitic entity like Israel sitting on American taxpayers' money. Now they hire 200,000 ICE employees, which is a big,
Not 200, 20,000.
200,000.
No, it was applied 200, but
200,000.
realistically, in the agency, 20,000.
They hire 200,000 people from different places to do all this fascist work, profiling people. Federal government expands itself by any means. They superficially, artificially created crisis, so-called immigration crisis, and they were boogeying us about criminals coming into this country. It's all bullshit. 95+% of people, I go to Mexico a lot, I've seen these people, they're family people, they're desperate, they're from the worst countries, they're ready to work. Instead of hiring those thugs, they better give them work permits and demand them to show what did they make. Give them a guideline and have them sign affidavit that they're not going to be freebies on American society, and our economy will prosper. We will have a lot of good mechanic shops, gardeners, whatever, good restaurants and food. Instead, we're having thugs with uniforms harassing Americans, harassing us. How are they going to deport 15 million people? We know this is bullshit. They're not going to be able to do anything. All they're going to do is just grab working people who has a job already and making a big show that if you remember, Elena, I was talking about 5 years ago, that all this is a theater, Trump will be back. Remember? I even said they're going to have probably...
No, I knew that he will be back, obviously.
I was betting it. Said they're going to even maybe, to make him a hero, have some fake assassination attempt to give him a credit that he's supposedly fighting some shadow government, which he is part of it. And that happened. And I knew 100% Trump was going to be back, and Trump and Putin going to meet and make the peace in Ukraine. This is part of the plan. It's obvious. We just have to wait a little more. BlackRock and other entities now dividing the Ukrainian goodies and stuff. And this is just a prescripted plan. And the same with Israel, this bullshit Hamas, which is financed, completely organized and directed by Israeli government, just like ISIS, just like Al-Qaeda was a combined effort of US, CIA, and Mossad. This is all fake bullshit theater for gullible people to swallow the pill. Everything Israel and United States do, it is all prescripted. All the supposedly enemies they have, they finance them. They work for them. There is no such thing as Hamas. It's bullshit. Hamas is Mossad. So, and they let that happen, whatever happened. They knew it's going to come. They did that, use this created by themselves situation to justify their genocide. Same thing was 9/11, same thing everything, same thing this immigration crisis bullshit. which it's all designed. Everything is designed. Everything. When they benefit, foremost, they benefit themselves, the leaders, the powers to be, and their puppets like Trump. Trump is a puppet.
So about immigration force, it is obviously, it's nothing to do with immigration by itself. It's about the new tool, what they want to make as real and for future that it will stay with us is control, more control. That's all. So the point is, if before people didn't know, for example, with 11, with two twins towers, so people didn't know, they've been in fear, so they bought as it is, like media presented. But now we are more smart, we know what it is, and I think people should realize that everything what somebody is pushing so hard, doesn't mean it is good for you, and it doesn't mean you have to accept.
Let me add something. I would never believe any candidate, I don't care what they say, once they're in office, if they do not investigate 9/11 and prosecute people who was guilty of it. If that doesn't happen, I don't believe anybody. I don't care what they say, America first, my ass is first, the moon is first, I don't care. Once these Giulianis, all these Chertovs, all these CFR members, all these people who, Bush family, everyone, Larry Silverstein's, everyone who was part of the mass murder of Americans on September 11, if everyone, any of them, until the moment then none of them is prosecuted, this 9/11 is not investigated and guilty parties are not going back to jail, and Department of Homeland Security, which was established because of that, is not dismantled again, I will not believe shit anybody says, period.
At the end of the day, I mean, it was Rothschild himself that said, give me control over a country's finances and I care not who makes the rules. The one thing I found, of course, being British, when I came over here, the British like to think that, when we elect someone, that there is a populism about it. In America, they all talk about how much money they've got in their purse. And and this has become very, very clear that the candidate who has more money is going to win. And that's always been the case in America, which means it's totally flawed in that way. And we started to see this in a number of different areas. But what I consider now a little bit of hope is that I believe there is an underswell of basic human understanding of going back to core values. Now, when you go to core values, it doesn't matter how much money that you have. And I think that it is being manipulated by Trump at the moment with the whole America First thing. You can only go to core values and your own culture when you create a culture war. And there is a culture war going on in the United States at the moment, whether it's people versus trans, or whether it's, left versus right, communists and socialists versus capitalists and fascists, whatever you want to call it. But there is definitely a culture war going on, and there is going to be very much more, the vast majority of people just want to live normal lives. They don't want men in women's sports. That is now being shifted as of today. They don't want their cities to be woken up at 5 a.m. by a call to prayer by a mosque. They don't want that. If you come to America, you assimilate. The Irish did it, the Italians did it, the British did it, the Dutch did it. Everyone did it. They came and built America, and they brought their own culture, but they created something new. And I think if America is going to succeed, and if it's going to go forward, it needs to go back to those original roots. It's like respect the culture of everybody else, but do assimilate into an Americana. right? So American Italians are different to normal Italians. American Irish are different to normal Irish. I know that for a fact, you know. And one thing I will take issue with is this whole Palestine thing, because Palestine is a fake thing as well. If you say Israel is fake, which it pretty much is, because it was only invented in 1948, you know, Palestine was Philistine, you know, and those people in the Gaza Strip are not Philistines. They're Arabs. They're Bedouin Arabs that were imported. So no one has any real right to any real land anywhere in the world. You know, at one point, the British owned 90% of all livable land. You know, now they don't. So, you know, things change. But what we're seeing now in England is that the Labour government, with all of its liberal policies, is going to fall, probably within the next 30 days. And it will be replaced by a populist, back to basics, back to being British. What does it mean to being British? America needs to ask itself, what does it mean to being American? Now, I don't agree with all of this stuff about, you know, white supremacy in America. White supremacists, if you like, or rednecks, whatever, they like tacos as much as they like hot dogs. You know, the Mexican culture, you've got to remember Mexico, when it was Aztlan, they ruled most of California, all of Texas, and most of Arizona. That was Aztlan, you know. So there is the culture of South America and North America is distinctly similar. And I think that is the bigger picture of what is going to happen, is that there will be Western values and then there will be Eastern values, you know, and the Eastern values, they seem to like communism and control. You know, the Han dynasty and the Chinese like that. Korea likes that. Vietnam likes that. Russia likes that. That's not who we are. So it's like, if you want an Eastern empire, fill your boots. Just don't come over here. If you want to live in a Western nation, then be prepared to assimilate and build that nation. You know, don't come over here and try and change things like they've done in Minnesota, you know, made it little Somalia. You know, that is not assimilation. That is not the American dream. That is not what the normal people will take. And that is why you're going to start to see a massive exodus of Somalis. You know, one thing I will say about ICE, I mean, I know some people that are federal agents in that way, and they are restricted quite a lot by the rules. And the rules say you cannot deport anyone unless they've actually got a deportation order against them. So it is not a mass roundup of workers and taco, you know, people and you know, if they are here illegally, then they need to be either legalized with the system, and there is a system for that, or they need to go back home and think about it again. You know, I'm an immigrant here. I've had to do it the legal way, you know, and I've had some issues and difficulties, but I'm still working within the law. And the reason that we have laws is to give some form of order. And it needs to have some form of control. Otherwise, we will just be killing each other and just taking our neighbor's land. So ICE are working within that law. There is a lot of bullshit about ICE right now as well. And this is a socialist agenda. You know, all you have to do is look at the protesters and try and find a normal person. You know, it's the whole blue rinse hair, purple trans brigade. You know, they're just the normal, they're professional protesters. You know, this is designed, as Arkadiy says, it's designed to conquer, you know, and divide. That's what it's all about. It's about division. And if we allow ourselves to be divided and to buy into the bullshit, you know, we just got to work on the theory that every time a politician's lips move, they lie. And that's just a fact of life.
Simon, I agree with you. Here is the interesting thing. The point that I'm in my life right now, I used to think I'm more like a conservative, this and that, but then living in South Dakota, I realized I'm not conservative at all. I think the liberals have a lot of good values. First of all, because they're atheist. And I'm disgusted by the rest of it. This gender bullshit, this climate change garbage, wearing masks and all this stuff. And they criticizing the government only if there is Republicans in charge. That's bias. And I agree with you about these paid protesters and all this shit. From another hand, we have religious Christian lunatics who's talking about Antichrist, end of the world, and Mark of the Beast, all that garbage nonsense. So, from my standpoint of view, they're both lunatics, one worse than another one. Good things about the right wing is they value Second Amendment, whatever. They don't they don't accept this many gender garbage, but they want to put 10 commandments of their death cult called Christianity, of their death cult in the schools to indoctrinate kids. And I lived among them, so I was at the meetings too, and I told them, your 10 commandments is no better violation of anything than transgender teachings. You guys doing the same thing. Keep your stinky, rotten 10 commandments in your kitchen. You live by them. You worship your murderous God, your maniac, and wait for the return of your Jewish con artist called Jesus. You do that in your kitchen, but don't bring that in the schools, just like the gender bullshit. So both sides are insanely crazy. Like I said, I take a little bit of atheist standpoints of liberals, more more freedom, less judgment against people with mental disorders such as transgenders or whatever. At least they don't judge anybody. And I would stay away from right wing when it comes down their hardcore fanatical religious obsession with Christianity. Supposedly it gives them values. I don't know where they come with those values. I read the Bible from A to Z. It's garbage. And so I see the only way for me personally, it's the libertarian approach, Thomas Jeffersonian kind of thing. I'm in the middle. I can't take sides. But I agree with you. The society is divided on left and right, which is old method, classic method, divide and conquer bullshit. And unfortunately, we have that. Unfortunately.
The two major documents in the world that have had the most power have been the Magna Carta and the Constitution of the United States, because it was built from whole cloth. Okay, so they brought all of their various different belief systems and brought them together and said, well, what do we believe? We're under the British yoke. We want to change this, and it's interesting, isn't it, that there was always against the British monarchy, the Magna Carta with King John, and also the Constitution. When you have free people, free thinking people that get together and create something magnificent, that is something to be treasured, and it's something to be protected. When you have a doctrine that is placed upon you, whether it be the Quran, whether it be the Bible, Book of Mormon, whatever you want to have, those are books that are not necessarily geared for modern day thinking and modern day people. And I think if we take all of those books literally, we have a problem. There are some beautiful verses in the Bible. There's some great guidance in the Bible. It was a book of wisdom. But then again, so was the Quran. The Quran was actually, a book of poetry and things, until the Islamics got hold of it, decided it was going to be a war manual, But all of these various different areas, human knowledge should have brought us to a point of greater wisdom and greater ability to be able to communicate and to see and to celebrate the differences in people, as opposed to seeing them in the old tribal ways. If you saw a person of a different color, come into your tribal area, then you had to kill him. We hopefully we've gone past that now, but I'm not so sure. But I would like to see human wisdom arise, and you're right, Arkadiy, in that way, in that you're saying, because you're owning your own beliefs, right? You're not trying to change anybody else. You're not trying to evangelize. You're saying, this is me, and it's like, well, yeah. And if you don't like it, that's okay. Just be you. And I agree with that part, because I believe that if we all stood up, just like in in the olden times of the original Marcus Aurelius Roman Forum is that each individual representative of the people had a voice, and that voice was the same as everyone else within that Senate. And we've lost that because we have this party line. We have this whole, they even call it the party whip, for God's sake. Mm-hmm. I mean, how disrespectful is that of a representative of the people? So I would like to see true representation happen. I think there should be an absolute limit on the amount of money that can be placed into a political campaign, and that each of the candidates should have exactly the same amount of money gifted to them by the people for the people. So it's like, you've got $5 million, spend it wisely. Make your words count, don't make the money count. Because at that point, you take away all of the bartering, you take away all of the bribery, you take away all of the corruption, and all you're left with is your opinion, your words, your values, and who you are, and your heart. That should be what you're elected on, not how much money is in your bank account or who is backing you up. Right? I mean, that should be what the people are demanding.
And the question is, do you believe in that? And when it's going to happen?
It's not
realistic.
And this is where Arkadiy is actually totally on the money, literally, because it's all about money. And while we ascribe values to money, we're never going to get out of that. I mean, imagine if all of the value of all of the money shifted overnight and was valueless. What would we do? Right? It would come back down to who has skills, who has charisma, who has values, who has kindness. That is going to be the new currency, and we need a financial collapse in order for that to take place. Because then you see the real people that have value in this community, people like doctors, people like mechanics, they would be the new rich, not the bankers, not the people who have crypto wallets. People who actually give back to the community should be the richest people within that community. And that's not happening.
Yes, and I don't think it will be near future, but
not in my lifetime.
Sounds very good.
Not in my lifetime, but it's just as Marcus Aurelius once said, that there was a dream that was Rome. That you became a citizen and you wanted to be a citizen. You added to the glory of that place. That too got corrupted. The Vatican corrupted that really quickly. But the dream that was Rome, the original Marcus Aurelius Rome, that would have been a good place to start. That would have been a really good place to start. And I hope at some point that, and this is the basis of my books, is that my job is to create as much positive, irreversible social change in my lifetime as I can, utilizing all methods given to me, which is the written word, the spoken, and the visual arts. If we can actually get to a point where we can just change the mindset of people so they're not in fear. You never make good decisions when you're in fear. When people are loved, they feel supported, and with the community, the community literally means the ability to have a common purpose. That's what communication is the experience to have a commonality, and we're missing the commonality. People are using communication badly. They're using it to divide as opposed to looking at the common elements to all of us.
Yes, very well said. And this goes from what we are wired. Everybody has different programs, different attitudes, and different chemical reactions in the body, and that's why they are answering and reacting differently. So, Arkadiy, would you like to add something?
I agree with Simon. I agree. We should communicate for common points, which all of us want to be healthy, happy, and etc. But instead, all the politics, all the interests, everything was divided. So people are hating on each other because someone is left wing, someone is right wing. someone is transsexual, someone is gay, someone is whatever, not white or white, whatever. This is all bunch of nonsense, but like I said, I agree with both of you that maybe in our lifetime we won't see that. So that's why me doing this analysis, trying to sort out things, exposing the garbage such as religion, faith, whatever that is, all these Trump, Biden games, all this European Union, Russia, China garbage. I decided to live my life at fullest. So before I dedicated much more time, greater deal of time being politically involved. Now I'm not involved in anything, just doing my videos. And I try to travel as much as I can and have beautiful affairs with beautiful women and enjoy the food, enjoy the women, enjoy the music, enjoy everything that I can while we have the health and abilities to do. So that's all for today.
And
It
for
was
a few words, what do you think is about the future? Because right now we definitely will have a problem with trusting to government, and we will have a mistrust for the election, which is coming up as well. And it will be emotional distress, a lot of depression. So what do you think?
I'm not participating in any elections. I don't give a damn. I don't care. Because I'm not gonna sit here in my house and think about elections and politics. I gave up. I don't care. I'm just gonna live my life, and I'm planning to go have more fun with more women, travel more, make more money,
Okay,
and
we
do my
got it.
thing.
We know
That's it.
that.
That's it.
Okay,
That's all.
Simon, what about you?
I'm not gonna participate in anything anymore. Done.
Okay, what your prediction? What is gonna be next?
Well, I don't vote here, so I don't have a horse in this race. So at the end of the day, I just hope that people will begin to wake up and truly see what is important. I mean, we know what's important to Arkadiy now. What is important to each individual, how they live their life. I feel that I don't think it's possible for people to criticize a system if they're not participating in that system. Okay, so the ability to vote, I think, is precious, and I don't think people should go away from the polls, but I do think that they should be more discerning in regards to who they vote for, not necessarily right or left, or because they live in a liberal state or a Republican state. They should look at the values of the individual politician, and the politician should be out there trying to gain the hearts as well as the minds of people, and just be real. Unfortunately, most real politicians, and this is where, again, I agree with Arkadiy, as soon as they get to Washington, it's almost like they get the brief. This is the reality. This is what's going to happen. You're going to receive these checks. How does Nancy Pelosi, who we know earns $160,000 a year, from the taxpayer, how come she's worth $189 million? I mean, riddle me that, and it's the same for all of them. Ocasio-Cortez, she was a bartender. She's now worth $25 million. How does that happen? They're not winning the lottery. Well, they are in some ways, but someone somewhere is giving them the money, and therefore nothing is for free in this world. Someone gives you 25 million, you've got to be earning that. It's as simple as that. And I think that we need to take that corruption out and get what is true service to the community back to exactly that.
Thank you for your wonderful opinions and actually very good insights. I really appreciate it. So here I was, libertarian.
Hopefully this is not the last time. First time, but not the last time. Simon, was a pleasure knowing you, buddy.
I didn't finish, Archie.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Unbelievable. You're running before the...
No, because I gotta go. I told you I have another interview lined up there waiting for me. So
I'm happy for you. So this will be last interview, that we will not have a lot of interviews.
We will. I think this is it's a good beginning. I would love to have interviews.
This was here with us, special forces specialist and libertarian, Archie. So thank you for contributing to this conversation, and we're looking for comments and observations. Please comments below.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you very much. Thank you, Simon. Sign
Thank
up
you,
for my
Arkadiy.
BitChute channel. I got Old Friends News, Arkadiy Melkonyan. That's my BitChute Telegram. I'm doing what I can. I had a pretty decent interview. It's very interesting stuff on my channel too. And I also have Russian channels, which is YouTube, anyway, etc., blah, blah, blah. So I will post links, Simon, if you have on my channel. Forward it to Yelena, please, where my listeners can find you. Look at that baby. Look at that baby. Give him a kiss. Give him a kiss right now. Oh, yes. I felt it.
And I got my other political analyst is here as well. She's been sitting next to me all
Oh,
the time.
yes.
And her name is Hope. And that's
Oh.
something that we do hope for.
By the way, Simon, he's the author of 25 books.
That's what I'm saying. Give me the link so I can link him and give my viewers information.
I will give that to you through Elena.
All right. Thank you.
All right, my
Thank
friend.
you very
Take
much.
care. Go well. Okay,
Thank
bye-bye
you,
now.
guys. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
So we talked today about power, force, borders, and global strategy. But behind every headline, there is a human behavior and nervous system reaction. Some people respond to what's happening in the world with aggression, anger, polarization. They need to dominate or win. Others respond with fear, anxiety, hopelessness, the feeling that nothing is stable or safe anymore. Both reactions come from the same place: loss of control, broken trust, and uncertainty about the future. This is what's happening right now to the whole world. So what can we do, and what kind of connection we can see over here? When system feels unpredictable, people behave the same in toxic relationships. For example, some to try to control, some shut down, some look for someone to blame and to feel completely powerless. This is not a weakness. This is just human response to prolonged instability. What we can actually suggest to people, first of all, differentiate what you can and cannot control. Second, do not live in constant threat mode. Even somebody is threatening, it doesn't mean you have to be scared. I know it's hard. Protect your sources. I mean, not only financial, because emotional source or relational, it is maybe more powerful than finances. Other words, people saying don't have $100, instead have 100 friends who can help you. Seek clarity, not certainty, and stay connected. Isolated people more amplify fear. Community restores perspective. What we can predict about in the near future, we are likely to see continued geopolitical tension, obviously, because everybody's trying to get others' territory or country. More polarized public behavior because a lot of people insane, literally insane, but also people becoming more selective and more conscious about who they trust. This is very important. More focused on protecting themselves from loss emotionally and financially. This is not the end of stability. It's the end of unquestioned stability. There is one thing I want people to take away today is this. Fear and aggression are signals, not solutions. Awareness is protection. And peace of mind is not passive, it's strategic. In uncertain times, the goal is not to predict everything, but to avoid unnecessary losses. Stay grounded and make decisions from clarity not panic. Thank you for being part of this conversation. And I wish for everybody a wonderful, wonderful life.